And also, that everything I'm saying as an agency owner is also coming from, myself as an agency owner, but feedback that I have received from my team. Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Create Your Life. And Honey is coming to join me on the couch right now. She never sits on this unless I am sitting here because she is just literally attached to me at the hip. Lucas just left to head back home for, I was going to say a few days, but honestly, it's a little bit more than a few days, about 5 days, I think. So she's being extra clingy with me because I'm her only parent here right now. So I am on, just full on mom mode, but we are still here, batching the podcast. And I am continuing on this kind of question to social media managers answers, where I also feel like this was a topic that I had a lot of questions about at the beginning when I was a social media manager. Like, I didn't understand how this quite worked. But now, as an agency owner, I feel like I have so much in depth knowledge to this topic. And we're diving into, drum roll, the pros and cons of working for an agency as a social media manager. Now, I'm coming at this from the lens of starting as a social media manager, working for an agency, and now owning an agency and employing social media managers to help me in my agency. So I have really been on both sides in this scenario and feel like I can speak to the full truth about the pros and cons of what it's actually like working at an agency. Now, for social media managers, let me just preface this by saying this is coming from my own personal experience, right? My own experience as being a social media manager, working for one agency, but also the agency that I've built and having social media managers under me. So, knowing that every agency is different. So, just a little caveat here that, don't take my word as complete, 100% concrete, answers here. Of course, there can be some differences between how different people run their agencies, how different people treat people on their team. So, just be aware of that from the get-go. And also, that everything I'm saying as an agency owner is also coming from, myself as an agency owner, but feedback that I have received from my team. And I try and be a very self-aware agency owner, having been in the other position and having been in their shoes. So I do, try and check in on a lot of the kind of cons that I'm going to address here to try and create the best work environment that I can. But again, I'm not saying I'm completely perfect here. I'm not saying that I don't have any cons, at my agency. But I just wanted to lay that, foundation before we dive into everything. Now, if you're thinking okay, well, I'm becoming a social media manager so I can be, a freelancer, so I can be a contractor, own my own business. Why would I choose to work for an agency, right? What's kind of the point of that? And there's a couple different ways that you can be a social media manager working for an agency. Definitely one of the ways is being, a full-time employee working for an agency, which isn't necessarily being your own boss, right? In a sense, or owning your own business. But the other one that I'm really mainly talking about is being a social media manager, owning your own business, and being a contractor within an agency as a social media manager. Now, the big con, or not con, the big pro to that is that you can still own and operate your own business and have your own clients and the agency is kind of like one of your clients under your whole business, right? So this is kind of like you're getting the best of both worlds, because really a big pro under that is that when you're working for an agency, it's kind of a sense of some sustainable client base and income coming through. There is a slight con to this where it may not necessarily be extremely consistent or steady income based upon the agency's client base and how many clients you are working on. But if you have a great relationship with the agency, it's keeping in mind that they are going to consistently bring clients to you to work on. Now, I have my little handy dandy notes here so I can make sure I hit upon all of the points. So let's dive in to kind of we'll go through the pros first and then we'll go through the cons, but I wanted to start off there. So, big pro is that when you're working for an agency, you don't have to worry about a lot of running your own business things such as sales, marketing, like signing clients, and all of the back end stuff that goes along with running a business. So when it comes to admin, setting up processes, systems, contracts, payments, when it comes to actually managing the client, right? Like all of that nitty gritty stuff that goes typically on the agency owner or whoever is maybe like the account manager. You are more so just in your own lane of being the social media manager for that client. So that's really nice because you are strictly focused on just the deliverables of social media management and not all the other things that take up a lot of time and energy of actually managing that whole client from beginning to end. So there is a lot kind of less work, and I'm saying that in quotations, less work that goes into you fully housing a client than it would if you were to sign that client on yourself. So that's kind of like the really main difference here that I see like right off the bat. Now, the other pro here is that when you're working for an agency, you really get clients and their strategy and the systems handed to you, right? So you're not, again, having to go out and source and sign clients and do all the sales stuff. That is the agency role. And you get, handed a client, and all the systems are set up for you. And typically, now this may differentiate between agencies, but typically you also get the strategy handed to you. This is how I run things at my agency, where I am still involved in all of the clients. My main role is the high level strategy for all of the clients. So I set up all of my contracted social media managers with like the full on strategy and plan handed to them to execute and implement, through their social media management package. And that is a huge come up because, again, that is saving a lot of time and energy, but also you're getting that done from an expert. So it's really honestly like probably such a saving grace, I think, truly, when you're a social media manager, to have like an amazing strategy handed to you from someone who is still a social media manager and understands it. Like that is just huge. So from there, now this is probably something that again is very dependent on the agency, but typically when you're working for an agency, you get some built-in free professional development. Now, whether that be that you are getting trained, by how specifically to deliver, things within the social media management package, or you're just getting trained on certain topics throughout the month. Me personally, and what we do at the agency is I always start every social media manager with 2 weeks of training so that they know and can live up to the standards that we have set at the agency. But we also do monthly training. So we have an hour of a monthly team training that can vary from topics such as Reels training, TikTok training, Pinterest training, to more of a coaching session where we're working on mindset or limiting beliefs, or like really it ranges here to whatever the team is feeling like they need the most. So this is great where, instead of working, it's different when if you're working in a corporate environment and you're getting free professional development. It's kind of nice to be a contractor but still get that free professional development added in there. So I'm always looking for ways that I can give my team resources, or, give them trainings that I've paid for, course access, or whatever it may be. I'm always sharing everything that I am learning. Now, the last pro here is that typically you do not have to pay for any of the like tools or tech or expenses it takes to manage clients. So a lot of, project management systems, Slack, Google Drive, Honeybook, right? Your CRM, a scheduler, like Canva, any of these tech and tools, you don't have to pay for these expenses. Now, this leads us into probably the number one con, which is related to the financial side of this, right? So even though you're not paying these expenses, you're typically bringing in a bit less per client through the agency than you would signing that client on your own through your own business. Now, because the entrepreneurial world, there's no set like standard on how to do this typically, this is going to look different for every agency. Whether you are paid on an hourly basis, whether you have a set monthly rate, whether you get a percentage of a client package, it's going to vary. Typically, what I do is pay a percentage of what a client is bringing in to the business to the person who's managing the account. Now, this is also keeping in mind that I am still involved in the client work and that I have other people within my business helping on the back end that I need to pay within what that client is bringing in also. So while we have all of these pros, which definitely, is helpful to lessen your expenses overall, typically keeping in mind, again, you're going to be bringing in a bit less than you would if you were to sign them outright. But, there may be cases where an agency is really upselling, the packages to cover what you may be wanting to make, and that is great. Like I do try and, value and chat with my team about what they're looking for in terms of payment, but that is something I think needs to be really transparent in terms of what you're looking for and what the agency's setup is for their payment structure. Now, the other con is that you don't necessarily have as much freedom in the clients that get assigned to you and that you are working with and what their package looks like. Now, what this means is that if you prefer to work within a certain niche, or maybe it's just like a personal, like you don't like this certain client or whatever it is, there's a lot of times where you're not necessarily choosing who the agency brings on as a client or what the services are necessarily. So, what I've really tried to do at my agency is ask the social media managers who they want to work with, who they like to work with, right? And also, when we have someone come on, I kind of give a debrief on the business, who this person is, what their package is, and get a gist of who would be the best fit and who would want to take this client on. So, really trying to do some like matchmaking here, but for some agencies, this may be the case, or some others, you really may not get that much of a choice. So just keeping that in mind versus if you owned your own business and were fully signing your own clients, that obviously you'd get 100% authority here in choosing, to take that client on. The next con related to this is not having as much say in the back end systems of how things are operating. For example, what tools, is the agency using? How does the process go for creating content, like approval systems and all of that? What's great is if an agency does take into consideration like what is the easiest for the team and what would make the most sense and how to streamline things. But just keep in mind that, the agency can run the back end, how they see fit and what would be the best. Now, the last con here, and I think this one does also vary a lot, is that typically agencies are a pretty fast paced environment when you are managing, multiple clients or projects at a time. So I feel like this kind of goes hand in hand though with having your own business and having multiple clients that you're managing. So when it comes to an agency, however, it's just if you are managing, working with an agency with other clients, just keep in mind that it can be a lot to kind of manage in different places, especially at first. Like, I think it's a lot to get used to, and social media management is kind of just a fast-paced world in general. So just something to kind of be aware of. So that's my list of really just the main pros and cons that I have seen throughout my social media management time. And it really is dependent on what is the best fit for you and what you place more value in for yourself. And it may not be a good fit for you to work for an agency, or it may be a great fit for you to work at an agency. So, really just explore your options. And I would say also be kind of picky and if you're choosing to go the agency route and what agency you are working with, and ask them about a lot of these things that I've chatted about here to see how it works, with them. Who is your point of contact? Are you getting support in client communication, right? Are you an account manager and a social media manager? Or are you literally just, creating content and sending it over? So these are all really important things. And like I said, a lot of this is coming from my own experience and my own kind of authority and expertise in this space. And if you're looking to learn more from someone who's been there and done that and get the dirt on the industry, but also just how to build a social media management business that you love and fuels your life and is profitable and sustainable, I highly recommend to add your name to the waitlist for my group mentorship, my social media BFF, which is my group mentorship for social media managers. And this is really the space to get full access to my brain, to get full access to my business and everything I've learned in the past, I think 6+ years at this point, being a social media manager. If you're looking for that support, when you add your name to the waitlist, you'll be the first to know when spots open up. So you can grab your spot because they are limited. I like to keep a really just intimate community within the mentorship. And if you have any questions about today's topic or about the mentorship, please send me a DM. My DMs are always open and I'd love to chat with you about it. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this episode, it would help me out a ton if you could leave a review, if you could subscribe, follow, like, do the things, check the things off. It really, really helps me. So I love you all so much. I'm so grateful for you, and I'll chat with you next time. Bye.